The phone rang, and I knew before I even answered. My mother, Eloise, had a way of making her disapproval vibrate through the line, even when she was just calling to say hello. This wasn't a hello call. Andrea, she began, her voice tight. I'm calling about Kinley's graduation. My stomach dropped. I'm Andrea, and at 32, I thought I was old enough to be immune to my mother's particular brand of emotional warfare. Turns out, I was wrong. My divorce 6 months ago had ripped open old wounds, making me the family pariah, and Eloise, who just turned 60, had been more than happy to twist the knife. Yes, Mom? I tried to keep my voice even, but a tremor betrayed me. You're not welcome, she stated, no preamble, no softening. Your life choices are a bad influence. Kinley needs to focus on her future, not be distracted by your mess. The line went silent, but my ears were ringing. My mess. That's what she called it. Leaving a husband who had made my life a quiet hell was a mess. Living authentically was a bad influence. Years of whispers behind my back, the pointed silences at family gatherings, the way cousins averted their eyes. It all resurfaced, a tidal wave of shame and fury. I hung up without a word, my hand shaking. That night, I spiraled. The familiar cocktail of silent rage and self doubt was a bitter companion. I scrolled aimlessly, trying to numb the sting, when a notification popped up, a message request from Kinley, my cousin, who was just 18 and about to graduate high school. I opened it, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and curiosity. Andrea, it read, I know what Grandma said. Don't listen to her. You're the bravest woman I know. A tiny spark ignited in the dark pit of my stomach. Kinley, quiet and observant, had seen beyond the family narrative. She saw me. But that spark was quickly overshadowed by a fresh wave of anger. Kinley's message confirmed what I'd suspected. Eloise hadn't just told me. She'd gossiped to the entire family, painting me as broken, lost, a cautionary tale. She wasn't just banning me, she was publicly shaming me again, ensuring everyone knew I was the black sheep. And this time, it was at Kinley's expense. A few days after Kinley's message, I suggested we meet. Not at my place, not at hers, but at the old diner on the edge of town, the one my mother, Eloise, considered beneath us. Kinley agreed instantly. She slid into the booth across from me, her eyes darting around nervously before settling on mine. Kinley was usually so composed, but today there was a jittery energy about her. Thanks for meeting, she whispered, pushing a stray strand of dark hair behind her ear. Of course, I said, offering a small smile. What's up? She took a deep breath. Grandma told me you wouldn't be at graduation, and Aunt Angela called my mom, Vanessa, to remind her about family expectations. Kinley rolled her eyes, a flash of defiance in them. They want me to go to Northwood State. It's local, cheap, and close to family. My blood simmered. Northwood State was fine, but it wasn't Kinley. Is that what you want? I asked, already knowing the answer. She shook her head, a wistful look on her face. I got into Boston College, early acceptance. It's my dream. But the tuition is insane, and Dad, Stephen, says it's too far, too expensive. He wants me to stay here, help out with the family business later. She paused, her voice dropping, and Grandma says it's a waste of money when I should be thinking about a good husband, not a fancy degree. The words hit me like a punch. Eloise, at 60, was trying to trap Kinley in the same small town expectations that had suffocated me for years. But then Kinley looked at me, a genuine admiration in her eyes. You left, Andrea. You did what you wanted. You're the bravest woman I know. That was it. That was the spark. Kinley at 18 saw me not as a failure, but as a path to freedom. My silent rage transformed into a fierce resolve. I would give her that chance. I would give her wings, no matter what it cost me. As we were leaving, I spotted them. Eloise, my mother, and Angela, her sister, my aunt, huddled in a corner booth, their voices low but sharp. I froze, pretending to adjust my purse strap. Kinley's just confused, Angela, 56, was saying, her tone dismissive. Eloise, you're right. Boston College is out of the question. We'll make sure Vanessa and Stephen understand the family decision. Eloise, 60, nodded, a triumphant smirk on her face. Exactly. She needs to be guided. We can't have her getting any ideas. They were actively sabotaging Kinley's dreams. My resolve hardened into a cold, calculated fury. Oh, they were going to regret this. The next morning, my first call was to Boston College's financial aid office. I explained I wanted to make an anonymous donation to cover a specific student's tuition, room, and board for their entire 4 years. The woman on the other end was professional, but I could hear the surprise in her voice. It took a few calls back and forth, navigating the paperwork, but within a week, it was done. Kinley's dream was funded. The anonymous donor was me. It felt like a weight had lifted and a new one had settled in its place, the weight of a secret and the anticipation of what was to come. That evening, my phone buzzed with a group text from my Aunt Angela, 56. Family dinner at Mom's tonight. Just us, celebrating Kinley's future at Northwood State. The just us was a clear jab, a reminder I was still exiled. My mother, Eloise, 60, was probably beaming, thinking she'd orchestrated the perfect family unity. I could almost hear her telling everyone how sensible Kinley was, how she was making the right choices, unlike some people. My uncle Pablo, 58, Angela's husband, would be quiet, but his silence often spoke volumes, usually in agreement with Eloise. I pictured them all around the dining table. My cousin Vanessa, 44, Kinley's mother, probably trying to look pleased, while Kinley, 18, sat there, her dreams slowly being chipped away. It fueled my resolve. I picked up my phone and sent a single text to Kinley: say nothing until it matters most. I didn't elaborate. She was smart, she'd understand. Later that night, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. I almost didn't answer, bracing myself for another lecture about family unity. But her voice was strained, quiet. Andrea, can we talk? Just you and me? What's wrong, Vanessa? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. It's Kinley, she whispered, her voice cracking. She's so heartbroken about Boston. Stephen, her father, is so set on Northwood, and Eloise and Angela are just relentless. I don't know what to do. I want her to be happy, but the family pressure is immense. Sometimes, she paused, a heavy sigh on the line. Sometimes I wish I'd had someone like you when I was her age. Someone to tell me it was okay to want more. A strange mix of vindication and sorrow washed over me. Vanessa, caught between loyalty and her daughter's happiness, was finally seeing the cracks in the family facade. She was torn, and in her vulnerability, she was confiding in me, the black sheep. It was a small victory, but it meant something. It meant I wasn't entirely alone in this fight. The weeks leading up to graduation were a blur of anxious secrecy for me. Every day felt like I was walking a tightrope. I kept thinking about Kinley, 18, and the immense pressure she must be under, especially after Vanessa's call. My own family, particularly my mother Eloise, 60, and Aunt Angela, 56, seemed to have doubled down on their campaign to paint me as the cautionary tale, making the family chemistry feel increasingly toxic, even from a distance. I saw posts on social media from my younger cousins, Riley and Alea, tagging Eloise and Angela at family gatherings I wasn't invited to, always with some saccharine caption about tradition or unity. It was a constant, subtle jab. There were moments, late at night, when fear for Kinley's future and a heavy dose of guilt and anxiety gripped me. What if this blew up in her face? What if I was just making things worse? My initial righteous fury would waver, replaced by doubt. Maybe I should pull out. Maybe I should just let her go to Northwood State, accept the path laid out for her, and avoid the inevitable explosion. The cost of my revenge felt suddenly very high, not just for me, but for Kinley. Then, a few days before graduation, I got a call from my cousin Max, 28, who usually kept his head down and stayed out of family drama. He sounded uncomfortable. Hey, Andrea, he started. I overheard something at Grandma's. She's planning a big announcement at Kinley's graduation. Something about Kinley choosing family values and turning down Boston College for Northwood State. She wants to make it a whole thing, a speech about tradition and sacrifice. My blood ran cold. An announcement. Eloise wasn't just subtly influencing, she was planning a public spectacle, a grand performance of control, using Kinley as her prop. It wasn't just about Kinley's choice anymore, it was about Eloise solidifying her matriarchal power, publicly shaming me by proxy, and ensuring no one else in the family dared to stray. The doubt vanished, replaced by a renewed, icy determination. This wasn't just for Kinley anymore. This was for every young woman in our family who had ever been told their dreams were less important than family values. The night before graduation, my phone buzzed. It was Kinley. "Will you be there?" she asked. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I hadn't told her I would come, only to stay silent. But her question, so simple, so direct, cut through all my anxieties. She needed me, and I needed to be there. Graduation day dawned bright and clear, mocking the storm brewing inside me. I arrived early, dressed in a simple dark dress and sunglasses, hoping to blend into the sea of proud relatives. The high school auditorium was already buzzing, filled with the excited chatter of families and the rustle of programs. I found a seat far in the back, near an exit, tucked away in a corner where I could observe without being easily seen. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet hum of anticipation. From my vantage point, I could see my family clustered together in the front rows. My mother, Eloise, 60, was practically radiating smug satisfaction, her head held high. Aunt Angela, 56, sat beside her, nodding emphatically at something Eloise was whispering. My uncle Pablo, 58, was there, looking as stoic as ever. I spotted Kinley's parents, Vanessa, 44, and Stephen, 48, looking a bit more subdued than the others, but still part of the united front. My younger cousins, Riley, Alea, Max, and Zane, were scattered around them, some looking bored, others genuinely excited for Kinley. Tensions were palpable, at least to me. I could almost feel the undercurrent of gossip and judgment swirling around the Wolf Mason section of the audience. I heard snippets of conversation from people nearby, whispers about family drama and that poor girl Kinley, and what a shame about Andrea. It was like a Greek chorus, confirming that Eloise had done her job well, ensuring my exile was public knowledge. The ceremony began with the usual speeches from the principal and valedictorian. I watched Kinley, 18, on stage with her classmates, her face a carefully neutral mask. She looked beautiful, poised, but I could sense the tension in her shoulders, the way her gaze occasionally flickered towards the front rows, then quickly away. Then came the moment I'd been dreading and simultaneously waiting for. The principal announced, "And now we have a special address from Mrs. Eloise Wolfe, grandmother of our graduating senior, Kinley Mason, who will speak on the importance of family and sacrifice." Eloise, beaming, began to make her way to the podium. She moved with an air of triumph, a queen ascending her throne. My stomach clenched. This was it. She was going to announce Kinley's choice and use it to further her narrative. But just as Eloise reached the podium, the principal leaned over and handed Kinley an envelope. Kinley took it, her brow furrowing in confusion. She opened it, read the contents, and her eyes widened. She froze, a gasp escaping her lips. Then, slowly, deliberately, her gaze swept across the crowded auditorium, searching. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, finally locked onto mine, far in the back. A hush fell over the auditorium as Kinley, 18, stood frozen, the envelope clutched in her hand. My mother, Eloise, 60, was still at the podium, a triumphant smile fixed on her face, oblivious to the shift in the atmosphere. Kinley's eyes, wide with a mix of shock and dawning comprehension, were still fixed on me in the back. A silent conversation passed between us, a recognition of the secret we shared, and the moment it was about to explode. Then Kinley moved. She walked to the microphone, her steps slow but deliberate, passing Eloise without a glance. My mother's smile faltered, replaced by a look of puzzled annoyance. Kinley cleared her throat, her voice trembling slightly at first, but gaining strength with each word. "Thank you, Principal Davies, and thank you, family and friends, for being here today," she began, her gaze sweeping over the audience, lingering for a fraction of a second on her parents, Vanessa and Stephen, in the front row. "I know there have been a lot of discussions about my future plans and some expectations." She paused, taking a deep breath. "But today, I'm here to announce my own truth." A ripple went through the crowd. Eloise, now fully aware something was amiss, took a step back from the podium, her face a mask of confusion and growing alarm. "I am incredibly grateful for the support of my family," Kinley continued, her voice clear and strong now. "But I have decided to follow my dream. I will be attending Boston College this fall." A collective gasp swept through the auditorium. My family's section erupted in murmurs. I saw Aunt Angela, 56, lean over to Eloise, whispering furiously. Eloise's face was turning a mottled red. This wouldn't be possible, Kinley added, a radiant smile breaking through, without the incredibly generous support of an anonymous donor who has covered my full tuition and expenses. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd again, searching. She found me, and a slow, knowing smile spread across her face. Then she raised her arm and, with a confident, deliberate gesture, pointed directly at me. Shockwaves. The entire family section gasped, a cacophony of whispers and exclamations. My mother, Eloise, staggered back, her hand flying to her chest, her triumphant expression replaced by utter disbelief and betrayal. Vanessa, Kinley's mother, burst into tears, a mix of relief and shock. My uncle Pablo, 58, who rarely showed emotion, sat stunned, his jaw slack. Stephen, Kinley's father, looked like he'd been punched in the gut. The ceremony ended in a blur of confused applause and frantic whispers. As the graduates filed out, rumors swirled through the auditorium. Family members were already scrambling, turning to each other for answers, their faces a mixture of outrage and bewilderment. The air was thick with the scent of impending confrontation. I slipped out of the auditorium through a side door, making my way backstage. I knew the storm was coming, and I wasn't going to hide from it. I found Kinley, 18, surrounded by a swirling vortex of my family. Eloise, 60, was red faced, her voice a furious hiss. Angela, 56, stood beside her, arms crossed, glaring. Vanessa, 44, was trying to calm Kinley, while Stephen, 48, Kinley's father, looked utterly bewildered and furious. How could you, Andrea? Eloise shrieked the moment she saw me, her eyes blazing. You've ruined everything. You've destroyed our family unity, filled her head with nonsense. I walked straight towards Kinley, putting myself between her and the raging matriarch. I didn't ruin anything, Mom, I said, my voice low but firm, years of pent up fury finally finding its release. You did. You tried to control her, just like you tried to control me. You tried to force her into a life she didn't want, all for your family values and your public image. My image? Eloise scoffed, incredulous. You're the one who shames us. A divorced woman throwing money around trying to buy loyalty. I bought Kinley freedom, I retorted, my gaze sweeping over the faces of my family. Something you never understood the value of. You judged me for leaving a bad marriage, for daring to live my own life. You whispered behind my back, you banned me from family events, you painted me as a bad influence. Well, maybe I am a bad influence if it means encouraging someone to chase their dreams instead of living in fear of your disapproval. The air crackled with unspoken resentments, decades of bitterness, of Eloise's subtle manipulations and Angela's staunch loyalty, of Pablo's quiet complicity, all spilled out. Andrea is right, Vanessa suddenly interjected, her voice trembling but resolute. She looked at her husband, Stephen. She's right, Stephen. I wish I'd had an Andrea in my youth, someone to tell me it was okay to want more than what was expected. She turned to Kinley, tears streaming down her face. I'm so proud of you, baby. Go to Boston. Live your life. Stephen, who had been glowering at me, visibly deflated. He looked at his wife, then at his daughter, then at the floor. The public shaming, coming from his own wife, was a blow he clearly hadn't anticipated. I felt a grim satisfaction, a bittersweet vindication. I had said my piece. I had given Kinley her wings. I turned to leave, but not before looking at Kinley one last time. Never let them write your story, I told her, my voice softer now, a promise and a warning. Then I walked away, leaving the chaos behind me. The weeks that followed Kinley's graduation were quiet, almost eerily so. The immediate aftermath was a flurry of angry phone calls I didn't answer, and texts from cousins like Riley and Alla, who clearly sided with Eloise, accusing me of tearing the family apart. Some family ties were in shreds, just as I'd expected. My mother, Eloise, 60, had gone radio silent, which was almost worse than her yelling. Then a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. It was from Eloise. Inside was a vitriolic letter, pages long, blaming me for everything, for Kinley's disrespect, for Vanessa's weakness, for the fracture in the family. She called me selfish, destructive, and reiterated that I was no longer welcome. I read it, felt a dull ache, and then, surprisingly, a sense of peace. Her words no longer held the power to wound me as deeply as they once had. A few days later, a smaller, handwritten card arrived. It was from Uncle Pablo, 58. His message was brief, almost cryptic. Andrea, it read, I saw what you did for Kinley. It took courage. Sometimes the right path isn't the easy one. Thank you. No blame, no judgment, just a quiet acknowledgement. It was a small crack in the family's united front, a hint of new respect from a man whose opinion I'd always valued, even if he rarely voiced it. Meanwhile, Kinley, 18, was thriving. Her social media updates were a constant stream of vibrant photos from Boston. She sent me postcards too, iconic cityscapes, a picture of her dorm room, a selfie with new friends. Each one was a testament to her newfound freedom, a quiet thank you that resonated more deeply than any verbal praise. She was studying, exploring, living the life she'd always dreamed of. The price of my revenge was bittersweet. There was vindication, yes, a deep, satisfying sense of justice served, but there was also a quiet loneliness. The family I had once craved acceptance from was now irrevocably broken, at least for me. I had chosen authenticity over belonging, and while the choice was mine, the consequences were real. I scrolled through Kinley's latest post, a picture of her laughing, bundled up against the Boston chill, looking utterly at home. I had given her wings, and watching her soar, I knew without a shadow of a doubt